I had a good situation where I grew as a professional and I was generally supported. But to your point, I had a mentor, a gentleman named Ray McGuire, right? One of the kind of legends and OGs of Wall Street generally, and one of the leaders certainly in Black Wall Street. And he was a managing director when I was like a sophomore doing one of my internships. And he said, let me tell you about being Black on Wall Street. You've got a spotlight on you. So let me tell you about how that spotlight works. He said, hey, if you're a star with the spotlight, you're the brightest star and everybody knows you. And it's going to be awesome. He said, if you're not doing well, if you're struggling with the spotlight and you won't last long. And he said, the thing that's really tough about this is that if you're average, you're going to be average with the spotlight, you don't slip through the cracks. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. You're publicly average. And I would say that has been very consistent with my experience. And there were just a number of times where there were the kind of small, for lack of a better word, microaggressions, where, a senior person didn't necessarily always see me, or see themselves in me. And, I would hear about how folks had gotten together on the weekend or gone water skiing or, had just had interactions where I wasn't invited. And I don't think there was ill will, but I noticed that. And then, frankly, there have been other interactions that were a lot less positive, that were more overt, where jokes got made that were in super poor taste. And just having had those experiences, and frankly, having not had to deal with it in Morehouse, right? And I went to an integrated high school, but I grew up in the same environment. So we all kind of knew each other. There wasn't like a lot of comfort. There wasn't a lot of room for that. And so some of the first times I felt some of that actual kind of overt discrimination, jokes that were just in poor taste, was in those environments. And so it's also kind of what began to kind of water those seeds of entrepreneurship that had been planted earlier. Me realizing, for me, navigating these environments as a career was just not something that I was going to be as interested in. And again, we were just kind of watering those seeds at that point. But no, that I will be honest and say that I did face some of that real discrimination, and that, bluntly, Troy, I think the folks before me in my generation and to this day, I think are still facing some of that, whether it is overt, whether it's covert, whether it is labeled as race or class. I think there's just a certain culture where, we are welcomed initially, right, as, hires and people can kind of check their box, but truly being a part of the culture, it's difficult.